Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our Women in Commerce campaign. We're talking to women who are leading the charge, who are doing really cool and exciting things for inspiration and aspirational goals from all the other women in commerce out there. Why don't we start with Osh? You are the Chief Brand and Marketing Officer of Maesa. TLDR, what are you doing now? A little bit about your path to get there.
So what I do right now, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Brand and Marketing Officer at Maesa, which is an incubator and an operator of beauty and wellness brands in CPG. Majority of our brands are at Target. You may know our brands better, Kristin Ess, Finery, Being Frenchie, Heritage by Mindy, amongst many others. And we just launched a brand called Niches and Nooks. I get to lead an amazing, brilliant team of creative studio, incubation, which is blue sky team that comes up with all these new brands and innovation ideas, a brand marketing team, and our integrated marketing, which is all of press, social, and influencer. And then, of course, across the whole portfolio and the new brands we are launching. So there is never a dearth of things to do, that my brain is always stretched from picking an ad piece of content to a social media piece of content to running a business case to talking about the P&L with my CEO, you name it. We are doing something or the other every second. So it's an exciting role, because before this I was at Charlotte Tilbury, where I was running the North America marketing organization, and it was just such an exhilarating moment we had there. The brand became #1 on TikTok during my time. We became the #1 brand at a very big retailer. I'm not supposed to say publicly, but there was just, both from a revenue and marketing standpoint, just so much of exciting stuff happening. It was in makeup category, it was in prestige. Before that, I was at Elizabeth Arden, and by virtue of that, at Revlon for a good 5 years, ran Amazon marketing for all of our brands. Also ran the luxury division for Revlon, and before that I was at global marketing for Juicy Couture, creating perfumes for the global launches, right? So there was that, and before that I was at Unilever, business school, and so on and so forth. So when I look back, it was a very important aspect for me to touch as many different categories as I could. So there isn't a personal care or a beauty category at this point in time that I haven't worked on. So with Maesa, where we can go into any category, it's truly a blue sky world that we live in. It feels pretty comfortable that it could be any category and I could learn it and I could excel at it. So that's one. Number two is there isn't an aspect of marketing and business management that I haven't done, which again, all my roles at Unilever, Revlon, Elizabeth Arden, Charlotte Tilbury got me all set up for and to have here. And then, of course, the stakeholder managing, talking to some very senior people, managing teams, all of that good stuff. It's almost like the life experiences kind of got me ready for this role. So it's an exciting time to be. Keeps me busy all day, but it's exciting.
All right, let's talk about the turning point. So was there a challenge early in your career that later became a strength? You've got a lot of things in that career.
Yeah, I will tell you, the biggest challenge was to move the lanes. So I grew up in India and at Hindustan Lever, which is the Indian subsidiary of Unilever Business. And they are, over the last 75, 85 years, have been known for churning out leaders in the country. Like if you look at in India, top 50, top 100 companies, the CEOs and the C-suite have had some tenure spent at Unilever. That is the track record of what they had. So I was obsessed with having that track record. And what was critical in that, it was mandatory for marketers at Hindustan Lever that we went through many different lanes. When I moved to the US in 2010, I found that it wasn't common knowledge. In fact, subject matter expertise was really very much appreciated. And so once you walked into a lane, you stayed in that lane. And I was adamant that I didn't want to remain in a lane, and I wanted to cross different lanes, and I wanted to become almost like a general manager rather than just be an expert at one thing. And as you can imagine, when you try to go against the grain, it comes with a lot of rejection. And it comes with a lot of no's, and a lot of times I felt very defeated by it. I could be the highest performer in one department, but when I'm trying to move departments, nobody would support that, right? So, and it felt I don't know, it felt sad, and it was a big challenge. And every time I tried to move the lane, no matter how senior I got, it was the same exact channel. But it's hard to change lanes, to change categories sometimes within our industry. So that was a challenge, but now I say that has become my strength, because I'm so glad that I actually persevered, that I did not take no for an answer, that I pushed and I pushed. And I really am grateful for people who then in the end took a chance on me. and I worked extremely hard to prove that they were right. So what was a challenge truly is my strength, and I'm very proud of having lived that, and I intend to continue to do that.
Well, let's talk about beyond the bio. Something you've done some incredible things, and there's two things I want to ask you about that you've done. Something that you're proud of outside of work. And you told me I know about your podcast because I listened to it. And then you
Thank
told
you.
me that you just joined a board, which I'm fascinated with. I think a lot of people are. So tell us both about the podcast, why you did it, and then joining a board. What's that like? What's the time commitment? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the podcast, my friend Padma Hari, who's actually the chief digital officer at Nestle, and she and I crossed paths at Revlon, and that's how we know each other. She was head of our data science division there, and an extremely smart woman. So one time, I think after we both left Revlon, we were chatting about me being frustrated on the business side, where I cannot get any tech adoption done properly, and she frustrated from a business side. Why don't the business people just let us do the job and understand what we're doing, right? And we inherently found that there was a broken dialogue between the two sides. We don't get each other. We just think differently. We talk differently. We don't get each other. And so then we were like, well, is there an element here of creating a podcast? Because I'm sure others are struggling from the same thing. What if business and tech side came together and created a podcast together? So it's for the gray area, it's for the in between. It's about breaking down that barriers of communication and really making it all right to not know something, to ask the silly questions, and to how to create proof points and success for smaller pilots, and how you evangelize what you're doing within the company.
And it's called What's the
What the Tech? Thank you for reminding me. I did not call it out. Thank you. So it's a quirky spelling, which would represent the quirky nature of my co-host. It's What the Tech, but instead of saying What the Tech, we say WH What the Tech. It's like we played on the phonetics. So if you can't find us, that's the reason why. So please just type in WH hyphen the hyphen tech with like an exclamation point, question mark, exclamation. It's a quirky spelling. You see a quirky name, that's us. About the board position, that's very new, and it's one of those passion projects that I was meant to do, I guess. And it's I've learned to over the years believe in science and universe and all of that, because if you don't believe in it, it's only your loss. So when I was a kid, I guess in college, many many years ago, thought that I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and wanted to cover wars. I wanted to give voice to people whose voices couldn't be heard, and so on. I had this starry-eyed view of life, and I wanted to change the world, as would any um, excited youth would feel at the time. Of course, my parents intervened. No, hard no, you're not doing that. They even let me take my journalism exams, thinking I won't get through them. And then I did get through them. And then they were like, oh no, this is getting real. You're not doing that, just to be clear. So then I ended up having to take a step back, go do a job, and then ended up in business school because it became clear that I was not going to be a journalist. And then for a long time, I wanted to be in academia then. And then I had my first launch at Unilever and fell in love with what I do. And I have no regrets, and I love, love, love my job. But this organization that I've joined, it's called the Global Justice Center. And it exists to advocate for rights for women, gender-based crimes that happen in war-stricken areas. So in a way, it's a full circle moment for me. That team does a phenomenal job. They're a very small not-for-profit organization of just 10 members. It's a very inspiring board. These men and women have spent their life's worth creating policies that are favorable towards women and in these specific areas. It's just so inspiring to be. I had my first board meeting in April. And it was just so nice to be surrounded by people who actually care about doing something good in the world, and are doing that as their life mission, and to be surrounded by that. I'm looking forward to my in-person board meetings coming up, to just be surrounded by that, and then there is a different dimension of life that we forget about in our industry and when we're just caught up in our day-to-day work. So I think for me, it's a respite from the day-to-day. It's feeling like I'm making an impact. It's feeling like I'm creating legacy. And I know policy level work takes time. But to be honest, if I can, through this work, even if it takes 10 years, make impact of 1 billion women and on their health and their well-being in these war-stricken areas, I would feel like I had a purpose in life and I gave back to this world in a more meaningful way. So yeah, so I think it's It's one that's very close to my heart, and I'm excited about it.
And the last question is, do you have an inspiration around a favorite book, podcast, LinkedIn voice that you follow?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have a lot of books I could talk about, but related to this whole notion around it will work out in the end, I think this whole idea, the book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I love that book. It's a very short read if you haven't read it. So I think it gives you perspective on how to not care about every little thing, how to let go and how to focus on the big picture and how to set your expectations. It talks a lot about a lot of people have goals and objectives, right? But it isn't about goals and objectives. It is about the pain you're willing to go through to meet those objectives. And if the answer is you can't and don't want to go through that pain to achieve that objective, then don't set yourself that objective, because if you do and you don't achieve that objective, it creates unhappiness and unnecessary anxiety, right? So I think to me, that perspective was a very interesting one. So now when I'm starting to take on new, or when my head is filled up with a new aspiration and a new dream or a destination I'm going to, I ask myself the question, oh, do you really want to do that? Because this is what it's going to take to get there, right? And if my soul tells me, yes, it's a battle worth fighting for, and I'm willing to go through the pain that it would entail, great, let's go do it. But if the pain is unbearable and I don't want to partake of it, then great, we move on to the next objective. So I think for me, it has been a really, really interesting game changer in how I think about life and aspirations and dreams in general.
Amazing. I've learned so much in, like, I don't know, the few minutes that we've been talking, and I feel very inspired by all these things. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you hopefully out in the next industry event.
Out in the wild. Thank you so much again for having me. It was a pleasure, Melissa.